Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today. And with us, I have another one of those guests that you're like, you've got to be kidding me. Where does she keep getting these guests? Well, I happen to know people who know people who know people who know more people. And kind of like back in the day, the Fabergé commercial, they'll tell two people and so on and so forth. Okay. So my guest today is Dr. Dawn Kier. And she is also known as the Heart Doctor because she flows with the heart of Father. And I'm going to read a little bit about her because I don't want to miss any of the good nuggets. Okay. Dawn Marie Kier, affectionately known as the Heart Doctor, and it is her joyous walk. It's her joy and delight to walk alongside of individuals, teams, and organization in both the secular and sacred spaces. Her work is deeply rooted in the belief that true leadership comes from an integrated place of understanding and operating from identity and resounding why and aligning with one's core values. With a relentless passion for serving and helping others, walk the walk and talk the talk. She focuses on guiding leaders and organizations to identify and address basic underlying assumptions while uprooting the underlying root issue that shapes the heart of a leader and the heart of an organization. Through her work, she empowers leaders to not only understand that what and how of their role, but to deeply connect with the why that drives their actions. She believes when leaders operate from a place of deep self-awareness and alignment with their purpose, they are better equipped to navigate challenges, inspire their teams, and cultivate cultures of trust, connection, and accountability. As the Heart Doctor, her goal is to guide leaders through the process of addressing the core challenges that may be hindering the growth or the growth of their organization by uncovering the hidden pain points and fostering an environment of vulnerability. She helps leaders to move beyond surface level solutions to address the deeper emotional, relational, and systematic issues that impact performance, culture, engagement, and well-being. She's a mother of two, a grandmother, a licensed and ordained pastor, and a certified co-active executive coach, and holds a doctorate degree in organizational leadership. Yay! I love it! I love it! I love it! Because if I think of that, right, I was just talking to somebody within the last couple of weeks on the mental health and well-being of an organization. That, you know, if the company's going to save $100 by doing away with some of the benefits, is it really worth the $100 you're saving? Right? So I would like you to share with viewers, you get to decide, Dr. Dawn, where you want to drop viewers in. Do you want to go way far back? Do you want to go to 19, right? Wherever you decide to drop viewers down into how you got this passion, because you don't just one day wake up and then you're doing something. It's a series of different things that leads you. So this interview is all about you, Dr. Dawn. You get to decide where you want to land the viewers.
Ooh, well, I like to understand Genesis.
Okay.
I think if we don't understand Genesis, it's hard to understand Revelation.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So what if we started somewhat of the beginning, but more from a career beginning?
Okay.
But, you know, as I said that, I think identity, who, and the core of a person. And so maybe I'll go back a little bit further to my identity.
Okay.
Because throughout this process, that was shaped as well. You know, it's hard to give what hasn't quite happened on the inside of you first.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I was born in California. I used to say like I'm a Valley girl.
Wait, no. The question is, did you used to wear the bangs up this high? That's the question. The real
listen. So I had Aquanet. So, and there's no humidity in Southern California, so I got to have big hair relentlessly.
Yes, yes. I'm going to send you a picture. I'm going to send you, because I didn't have to use the Aquanet. My hair, I am not kidding. It was this high. My bangs were this high.
That is great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so back in the days of Southern California.
So back in the days. So I always had a great interest in understanding people and understanding people at their core.
Okay.
And in high school, I used to say, 20 years from now, 6:30, Channel 7, turn on the TV, I'll be there. And I was convinced that I was going to get people's stories. That was going to be my jam.
Okay.
And so I continued with this deep interest in people, and that's what led me into human resources, into interviewing people. And I tell you, the interviews were never just interviews for me. It was this deep excavation of like who the person is at their core. And so I wouldn't ask tell me your greatest strengths and your struggles. Now I wanted to know, who are you? How do you behave when you get angry? What kind of things would upset you with a boss? And gosh, okay, I know why you left your last role, but what was the environment like that just didn't work well with you? Like, I wanted to know about that person so I could figure out a fit. Well, interesting enough, I saw that I could hire the best person who would have an amazing fit, and then 6 months later, the organization would be ready to re-gift them to another company. And it would burn me. And I kept thinking, what is this?
Did you just really say re-gift? Re-gift?
I did. I did. So that is a term. I heard it once. Somebody was referring to a Seinfeld episode about regifting presents. And I thought, no, we regift people to organizations. Because when we hire them, we think this is a gift. They're a gift. They're bringing their gifts, their talents. And when we hire a person, we believe, oh man, they're solving an organizational problem. They are plugging into a space. This is going to take us a little bit off topic. But another thing that kind of gets my goat is when a person leaves the organization. The reason why I say regift is because I have a firm belief that the same honor, the same value, that same integrity that you bring a person in, you got to bless them when they're going to their next place.
Amen. That's integral. That's integral. That is integral.
It is.
Because whether they were used to stretch the company or not is irrelevant.
Absolutely. And just because that season is over doesn't mean they're not going to go somewhere else and flourish. And we don't have to have these bad breakups. So, it was interesting me watching this people cycle and thinking, okay, is it leadership development that's the problem? Is it communication that's the problem? Like, what is it? And it finally led me to this space of, if we don't align people at the heart, I don't know that we're actually going to get aligned organizationally. So I was reading through the Bible, and I have a really good friend, and she always talks about how to benchmark from the Bible. And it was like back in 2000. Oh my gosh, that was 24 years ago. So she'd always say, the first org chart is in the book of Genesis. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. It's here. And as I kept going through, and of course, being in HR, you have to follow the law. And so I'm reading and reading and reading and reading. And I thought, oh, we are in trouble. Because if people didn't follow Torah, if they didn't follow the word of God, then what makes me think they're going to follow the law of the organization? What happened? What did the Lord do? He had to give us a new covenant and write it on the tablet of our heart. And so I said, oh, well, maybe we need to figure out how to write these core values on the tablets of people's hearts so that it's not just head knowledge, it becomes heart, so that they flow from here and there's greater alignment. So that was my big aha, and I was so excited, and I went and did this whole big redesign. you see me swipe my hand
Yeah.
because, yeah, just putting it out there is not enough. And I saw something organizationally, and it changed me.
Okay.
And what I saw was this phenomenal leader, um, loves the Lord, and great shepherd as well.
Okay.
But what I watched was him break the very values that we put in place. And when I witnessed it, it was crushing for me because at that tender young age, I still had this idealized image like, oh, leaders don't make mistakes. What happens? And what I recognized was at that moment, his personal values were greater than the organization's values.
Okay.
It took me years to figure that out because in the moment I was just devastated.
Okay.
And that led me to seek, like, why do leaders not walk the walk and talk the talk? Why do we say one thing and do something else?
Okay.
And it reminds me of Paul, right? The things I want to do, I don't do. And the things I don't want to do, I do. Why does that happen? And I thought, we get why it happens in the body, but it's also happening organizationally. Why is that?
Yeah.
And that led me at the age of 34 to go back to school and figure out an answer. And one day, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I will never forget it because I was at the university late. It was just me and the security guard. And I'm sitting there and I'm researching. And then I hear the Lord so quiet. And he said, acquiescent DNA. And Sean, my heart started beating fast.
He spoke that word to me one time. Acquiesce. He spoke that word to me. Hold on.
I love it. Pull it up.
I gotta look on my notes because I'm like, what if it's oh goodness sakes. I cannot wait to see this. He spoke that word to me one day and I'm like, what does that mean? Oh gosh, this is
huge.
Wild.
This is great.
It's ACQU, right?
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
You're doing so much better than me. I would have had to pull out my glasses.
No, I'm gonna have to figure it out because one day he spoke that word and I didn't even know what it meant.
Wow.
Acquiesce. He spoke that word to me. Okay, so go on.
So in that moment, when he spoke it, it was so quiet but so loud in my spirit.
Okay.
And I remember just going on my knees on that dirty university floor. Didn't matter where I was. And I cried, I hollered because I knew that he gave language to what it was that I was seeing and I was researching. And it's a strand that's on the inside of me, of all of us, that makes us sometimes not walk the walk. Hi, puppy. Can we get a visual?
No, he's not supposed to be doing that. No.
Okay.
I even have on the office door, do not knock, do not ding, don't even look at my door.
Look at there, he's being a rule breaker today.
Yeah.
So there's a strand that's on the inside of us. Expect that the things that we hold as true, that sometimes we're going to miss that mark. And I'm speaking organizationally now. I'm speaking from a work perspective.
Okay.
And it's usually around 5 different areas.
Okay.
And it all has to do with pain points around people.
Okay.
So the small sect that I looked at was leaders who, if they're hiring, firing, promoting, transferring, demoting.
Okay.
So if it's a people decision, a lot of times more times than I care to consider, what I find is that leaders will acquiesce or go against the very things that they put in place. So, for instance, a leader might say, or a CEO might say, we believe in a high performance, strong accountability culture. But yet they'll hold on to somebody who's a high performing, inconsiderate person who's not aligned. And the question is why? Or maybe it's someone who's not performing, but they feel bad for that person. And, oh, well, they've been with me since I came here, or been with me since I started the brand. But so then they start to go against
To
the very,
compromise.
absolutely, they start to acquiesce. And what I
Okay.
find is there's usually a pain in that leader's heart
Okay.
that hasn't been reconciled. There's organizational things in the heart of the organization, which is culture, that
Okay.
hasn't been reconciled. And so then this behavior continues. And when that continues, then we see that people start to disengage. They start to not believe the hype, so to speak. They start to say, oh, wow, you know what? No, I really see them. They're really not this way. So now I'm just going to come here for a paycheck. And they kind of quit and stay in their heart. So now we have their hands. We may have their head, but we don't have their heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So it kind
Yeah,
of demoralizes the work environment.
it really does. It does. Yeah, there's something out now. There's a big poll from Gallup, and they call it the Great Detachment.
Okay.
And I was cracking up. I was talking with a client yesterday, and I said, they call it the Great Detachment. I say, it's quit and stay. Where like you've quit in here, but you're still there. And it's an emptiness. And when I think about the pain that that causes the individual, when I think about the pain it causes the team, the pain that it causes the organization, it's just not worth it. And this journey for me is, how do we help get people out of pain? Because people are hurting. Organizations are hurting. Yeah.
And you have all different levels too. You can't have a CEO at the top that looks down the people as they're just there to provide him his lifestyle.
That's right.
Because that can only last so long, right? You have to have somewhere in the management stream somebody who actually cares about the employees and
Yeah.
doesn't look at them as just employees, but as people that sees it as a as something that they're stewarding, not something they're running or owning, but they're stewarding for the wellness of everybody involved, right? So how does your company go in and do this?
So interesting enough, and I want to speak to something you just said.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I have an example. No, I think I've been very blessed. All of the CEOs that I had an opportunity to serve, they
Okay.
care deeply about people. They care deeply about their teams. They're usually strong values-based leaders. They want more for their teams than they want for themselves.
Okay.
However, and there's my however, whatever's not reconciled on the inside is going to show up in the way that they serve and they lead. And that's not just for CEOs, that's for pastors, that's for all of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's not reconciled on the inside is going to show up in the way that we parent. I always say my firstborn had a different mother than the secondborn.
I would think so. I would think so, just for the record. I would think so.
Absolutely.
Right, and kids need to give their parents grace, because if you have kids that range in a 11-year span, right?
Yes.
I would hope that you would be a different parent by the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Our reality changes at different stages of growth. So it really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. We both
Okay.
we both did the breath in at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is really beautiful. So if we think of how do you advertise yourself, right? Because this is huge. Because companies, if they're not thriving, they won't live and last, right?
No.
So truly, this is about them truly having a heartbeat, right? Heartbeat for oneself and for others. Now, There may be some of you out there who think that you are the MATURE word already to the fullest of its extent. However, I'm of the mindset that none of us are done growing ever. Like ever, ever, ever. We are always growing, right? And so does it take a level no, of course it does, but I'm gonna word it this way anyways. What level of humility does it take for a company in order to seek your services?
Gosh, I feel that on the inside. It requires, and when I say requires, I've only had one person who reached out just because they wanted to do a health check. The rest are usually in pain. And they're in pain to the point where they're desperate and they have to do something. So it's very rare. The way how I describe it is that it's very rare for someone who has an ailment. Like if they could triage at home, self-medicate, then they'll try and limp along. But at the point when it starts to incapacitate them, then they're like, oh, I need to go to urgent care or to the emergency room, or,
Okay.
oh, I need to, call the doctor.
Okay.
So the same is true here.
Okay.
Organizations typically don't call until their teams are struggling, communication is broken, trust is wavering. There's things inside the culture, deep inside, that they can't figure out. Maybe they've just been acquired by a new organization, and this new culture, they're like, is that really going to fit here? Maybe there's a new leader who's come in, and that person's bringing a completely different set of values than what the organization thought. How do they start to align it? So there's usually some type of people pain point that causes the issue. And interesting enough, a lot of times organizations aren't proactive whatsoever in this space. They'll do like, oh, we're going to do a team building, but really kind of getting to the heart. It's not something that's at the top of mind, but it is expensive. And what I mean by that is that it costs about 35%. I usually take it down some, but 30% of an annual salary is what an employee spends in disengagement. So let's just make it easy. If a person makes $50,000 a year, right? Oh my gosh, a third of that is spent. $100,000 a year, then 30,000. I mean, for one employee is spent on disengagement. How much sales needs to take place to make up for that? So it's a huge problem.
It's almost like you are awakening. Just happen to have a little thing right here that I'll pull out. It's almost like you are awakening the sensory senses.
Ooh.
The sensory senses in the minds of leaders in company, the value and importance of helping employee, staff, associates, right, to be at their optimal mental levels.
Yes.
Because truth be told, we have in our nation, in our society, work culture, community culture, it doesn't matter what culture you're in, right? We are at an all-time mental crisis.
Yes.
We truly are. Because there's been a neglect on teaching mental mind management. Literally, like mental mind management. I'm going to pause this for 2 seconds. You just stay there and smile. I'll be right back.
Okay.
No. Okay, I just got a message and I had to go deal with something really quick. Okay, so in thinking along those lines, mental mind management, and it does cost the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is not send them to a shrink, encourage them to go to a shrink, right? Because that one little, and I'm not discrediting going to counseling or whatnot, right? But that
Mm-hmm.
1.5 hour session is not going to alter how many hours are in a week.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think about a work week and I say there's at least
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
At least.
At least 40. So the 1 hour of counseling, then how are you going to dictate what goes on in an employee's mind for the other 40 hours in the work week?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So how has your company gone in to help develop programs to help the overall mental health of the employees?
Yeah. So one of my favorites, and we do this in ministries.
Okay.
So for different size churches as well as for organizations, one of my favorite things to do is to hold space.
Okay.
So a lot of times what has not been expressed can cause them to be depressed, right? Because there's things that are here. So to create a safe space for them to say the thing.
Okay.
Usually we start off with some exercises that helps them. We get the leader out of the room and we give them an opportunity with post-it notes, just
Okay.
write down some things. And then we start to group them so that we can start to see shared mindset, shared beliefs,
Okay.
but they're all around pain points.
Okay.
Here are the things that are actually hurting. And then after we categorize them, then we say, now what do we want to do about it? And there's something really powerful when we pull the leader back in the room or we pull the pastor back in the room. I'll
Okay.
never forget, I had one pastor and he looked up at the board and he said, I don't want to deal with all of this. Really? They said all of this? And he's like, I don't want to deal with all of this. And then he started, one by one,
Yeah.
because he was surprised. And the reason why is usually we know our own intentions.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we want to do. We know how we want to show up, but usually there's a disconnect between how we want to show up and how we actually show up. And there's unintended pain that takes place. So with the organizations, depending upon their pain point,
Okay.
we'll either hold space for them. Sometimes we do something as small, and I say as small, as like
Okay.
a values-based leadership workshop where we figure out, gosh, how are you created?
Okay.
What's your big why? What's your unique DNA? What are the things that are most important to you? And then there's a list of 15 questions. We break people out into subgroups. And through them sharing, it's amazing what happens as they start to communicate and get to know one another. Not around what's your disc profile, what's your strength finders, but who you are. Because if it's true that
Mm-hmm.
who we are is greater than what we do, and that we bring who we are to what we do, then usually there's a person, there's an identity, there's a
Okay.
DNA behind what's being produced. And so just tearing down those barriers helps to build the relational equity between people so that they can serve better together and they can run better together.
That's really important because if I think of, I have 6 grown kids, right? Plus spouses or whatnot, right? And so if I think of the different areas of passion that each of them take into their field, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I've been a mom for 37 years. So, of course, I've heard stories, right, related to work, and they're all in different levels of different positions, right?
Mm.
But the overall morale of
Mm.
what is going on in the company is so important.
It is.
It truly is important.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you give us some examples of after your company has gone in, some of the confidential, of course, keep names and all that confidential, right? But some of the
Mm-hmm.
testimonials that you've heard where the work environment has changed because there's been a more
Yeah.
conscious awareness of viewing people not as employees, but as fellow workers.
Hmm. Yeah. Usually it happens right there in the moment.
Okay.
Um, so I'll speak of this one executive team. They've been together for over a decade. So
Okay.
you would think that they would really know one another. And I said, they were like, we just want to do a quick quarterly get together and connect. And I said, how much permission do I have? And, the CEO gave me carte blanche, which I'm like, yes. And
Okay.
what was interesting is they just wanted to connect.
Okay.
And so I was like, hey, we're coming out casual. Like,
Okay.
don't put on a suit because serious can happen without a suit.
Okay.
So we're going to just take off anything that would label us. By the time we left, there was such oneness, which is different than unity. Right. And so it reminds me of Amos, right? How can two walk together unless they agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened in that particular, I usually call them interventions.
Okay.
That's what I call them on the inside. But what happened in that particular session
Okay.
is that they started to see, oh, here's why this person shows up the way they do. Oh, the narrative that I was telling myself actually isn't accurate. And so throughout this half day, they started to challenge their assumptions. They started to remove lies. And then they started to embrace the gift that one another are. It was just amazing. And the feedback that I received immediately, two of the vice presidents said, can you come do this for our teams? Because we're having challenges.
Oh.
And so it was fantastic. But most importantly, we had a group of leaders who were already close.
Okay.
That had, and again, I don't know that I said this, but 80% of that team, they were men. And the majority of my clients are men, whether it's coaching or the leaders. And there's usually not a safe enough space to be able to say, hey, this is who I am. Here's where I'm really strong. Here's where I struggle. Here's what's hindering me. And then actually be able to say it out loud, because that's not typically the role.
Yeah.
But there's a freedom in being able to name it, come into choice, and then figure out, what do I want to do about it? And the space that I usually bring in as well is, what does the Lord say about this? What does he say about this?
Now, how do you do that for companies that do not acknowledge the Lord God Almighty? What are the, because it says for secular or sacred. So how have you trained yourself that image bearers are image bearers, right? You just tweak that, and it doesn't make it any less effective. It is not less effective, right? Because the Lord's given you creative verbal avenues to be able to portray a message without saying Jesus, Jesus, Jesus every other turn, right? So share with us. Let's say you're going into an organization that the furthest thing from their mind is King Jesus, right? Let's just leave it like that, right?
Yep.
But it's a very successful company, and now you're being called in to help the morale. Give us an example of how you can genuinely, right, call out the best in a person's identity so that they can cohesively work together as a team.
Yeah. So I usually do that through asking questions.
Okay.
And I'll get them to get quiet. And a lot of times, if you shut off one sense, then the other one becomes louder, right? So I might say, close your eyes.
Okay.
And then I'll invite them to listen to that still small voice on the inside. And a lot of times they're like, oh, Dr. Don, we're doing these crazy games. And so, but they go there with me. And as they begin to be quiet, of course, I am praying in the spirit and saying, Lord, speak to them. And it's amazing. They will get an image. Sometimes they hear audibly. Sometimes they have a sense on the inside. And for me to watch their expressions, and then they share, and it's usually not like, oh, I had this, but they're like, I just heard blah, blah, blah. And it's great. Now, what do we want to do with that? How does that make you feel? All right, how does this relate to how you show up and how you want to show up? Is this different than the image that you had for yourself? So there's a way to be able to ask questions and to get them out of their head into their heart in that space where the Lord can speak without calling on him.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, because let's see. Eternity has already been inscribed upon mankind's heart. Oh, did I say that out loud?
You did.
You know, but truth be told, in actuality, your company is going in to help people psychoanalyze themselves so they know the motive, right? But truth be told, they want to be understood. Everybody wants to be understood. Right?
Yes.
And people don't show up to work saying, I'm not going to put my, what is it? I think it was maybe it was Santa Claus is coming to town. Put one foot in front of the other, right? That's what comes to my mind, right? But people don't intentionally want to show up and not put forth their best.
That's right.
People don't want to do that. But when there's a lack of being understood, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes me think of, maybe there's somebody who is rigid, no ifs, ands, buts. If the meeting starts at 12, you are to be there sitting down at 11:50, right? Well, what's the motive behind that, right?
Yeah.
And so once people understand or have a chance to explain oneself, right?
That's right.
Be heard, right? They have a chance, an opportunity to be heard, right?
Yes.
And not be misunderstood. Then it seems like to me that there would be more respect given for how a colleague works. And is that what you've experienced?
I have. Once we start to understand that it's our difference that makes the difference, it is amazing. And instead of using the differences, it might sound so cliche, but especially in a team, think about it in a marriage, think about it in a family, think about it in ministry. Instead of using the differences to divide, how do we use those differences to bring us forward? So for the person who says the meeting starts at 12, we need to be there at 11:50. Guess what? Can that person be the person who sets up the meeting room? Can that person be the person? Right?
Come on, because showing up 10 minutes before is early. That's important to that person. To that person.
Absolutely. Is that the person who then goes and puts it up, on the virtual whiteboard of, hey, here's the meeting objectives. Here's blah, blah, blah. Is that the person who makes sure that the technology is set? Because they're there. Right? Let's think about how we each use our gifts. For the person who's running in late, guess what? Do we assign that person to do the 10-minute join up together or the icebreaker? So how do we utilize who we are, how we're created, so that we can build something great?
Wow, that's incredible. That's it. So you're just brainstorming. You're helping other people to brainstorm. So in actuality, for them to come up with the answers, okay? So we're going to put all of our goods out on the table. Okay, here's everything and then everybody gets to see it. Then the team gets to put it back together when they when they have the resources to begin with in the first place. They just didn't understand how to use the resources.
That's right. And giving them language.
Okay.
Because language usually breeds culture, right? You can go to different churches and each church has different languages, even though we are all looking at the same Bible. So there's certain things that they may, like one pastor may say, talk back to me. Another pastor may not say that, so different language breeds culture.
Okay.
So we give them, how do you guys want to communicate with one another? What's in and what's out? And then we'll get the things that are paining people in how they communicate. How do you guys want to celebrate one another? My favorite. We don't celebrate here. Oh, okay. How's that working for you? So how do you want to celebrate wins? How do you want to celebrate success? How do you want to celebrate milestones? When you accomplish something big, what does that look like in terms of pace, in terms of people, in terms of prize, in terms of momentum? What does that look like? Great. Now, how do we change together? What does that look like? And what model do we want to use to change? Or do we just drop something in and say, this is the new initiative and then keep going? So we talk about those things up front. We design it so that then teams can run faster, organizations can run faster, couples can move better together.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're just not just personal, but pardon me, not just corporate, but personal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is just wild. So you have a doctorate degree in organizational leadership. This is huge and so needed.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, it's interesting though. I find that I use more from the word in organizations than what I learned in school. You know, to me, that's the official. I don't want to call it a piece of paper because I don't want to degrade the countless hours and the bags of work and research and reading all those articles.
Yeah.
But but what I'll say is thinking about the wisdom that's found in the word
Okay.
of how to treat people. You know, a lot of times I'll share one of my favorite of exalt people higher than the offense. Right? Just exalt them higher than the offense. And what would that mean in here? Because a lot of times I find that we hold on to old stuff. Well, right, that's an unforgiveness piece.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so walking them through the principles of what that looks like and translating that, whether organizationally or even bringing people back to the word, if they're a non-believer, giving them different language. Yeah, so it's taking those
Yeah.
biblical principles and then teaching them how to treat one another so that then they
Yeah.
can do the hard stuff.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's just taking the higher ground too. It's choosing to
Mm-hmm.
take the higher ground. So, at what point in your life, right? So I'm going to do a two part. At what point in your life did because like you said, we come through things so that we can help other people come out of things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Without slicing you wide open, right? You
Slice.
you had to have undergone something special, oh so special you would never ask for the field trip, right? In your own life, right? That would make you want to help other people more easily transition through different phases in their life, okay? Because you're trying to create a cohesive environment, right? So you don't have to slice yourself all the way wide open. You get to share, is it the scab portion that you want to share, right? Or, just give us something that gave you the heart of compassion to want to help others, or because this is huge. This is huge.
Wow. You know, it's interesting because now I'm like, ooh, let's go for the slice. Let's cut it open. But I was thinking about this earlier. As far as I can remember, I remember seeing my grandmother
Yeah.
serve people, help people, meet. She would meet people and talk to them, get their stories. I watched my mom be very compassionate with homeless and helping. Even to this day, once a week she goes and she gets a bunch of vegetables and she's bringing it to different spaces and like. And then my dad, who worked for AT&T, he would take leftovers and put it in containers and hand it to those who were homeless, and then they would end up cleaning out the containers and giving it back to him. Like it was so. I think part of that is just the way I grew up, right? I grew up watching people in my family serve and give and
Mm.
support others. The part that was big for me, though, growing up, um, is I didn't feel, right? I saw a lot, but on the inside, I never had permission to feel. So I was
Mm.
all head and no heart.
Mm.
no heart. Like the Tin Man, right? If I only had a heart. And my team used to say that I would do this. And I'd say, what is that? And they say, you slice our necks and then you come behind with a triage. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So here I was, and I had this hard exterior. And I always would tell people, if you knew me back in California, you'd say, that heifer, I just don't like her. I don't like her at all. She's a smart aleck. She's all the things. And what was happening was the Lord was crushing who I made myself from a self-protection perspective, so that the little girl in me would not get hurt and wounded. And he crushed that identity. And here you go. One of the greatest things that Joshua, firstborn, said to me, he said, Mom, I watched you become a new dawn right before my eyes. And I'm like, oh. And it was through the things that I suffered. And whether it was through relationships, through a very painful divorce, whether it was through being cheated on, to neglect and abandonment, to the, okay, you want all the great things about me, but gosh, do you see me? What about me? Not just the gifts, not just the things I can offer you, but me, through the lies of, oh gosh, am I chosen? Ooh, so much on the inside, so much brokenness. I wouldn't say broken, but brokenness. That I had to learn how to feel. And you know what? For the first 3 decades of my life, I went through without feeling. If someone would say, how do you feel? I would talk through my emotions of what I thought, but I would not experience them. So I was missing out on how the Lord created me, how he created all of us, because, you know, in our heart, that's where the issues of life flows. And I had a lid on it because, oh my gosh, don't touch it, because one, are you going to crumple on it? And will my heart be so devastated that I won't be able to recover? And I didn't recognize that, one, I didn't trust God with my heart. I trusted him with all the other things, but not with my heart. Because if that was the case, then, oh my gosh, why was my heart so devastated so many different times? So there was a lot of healing that needed to take place. And the more I started getting free, whether it was through inner healing or even through my relationship with him, the relationship with others, I'm like, oh! And the moment that I started getting free, then I started seeing, it was like it was glaring to me. Oh my gosh, look at all these people who are hurt. How do I help people get out of pain? Yeah. And how do I get their hearts reconnected back to the heart of the Father? And the heart is the greatest barrier. It's the greatest barrier.
You know, it's so interesting because 5 interviews before this one, this gal shared, Lynette Pinkard shared that instead of trying to push away and hide my past, I decided to take my past to help define my future. Right? Use the very tools of her past, the very tools of her past pain, right? To define her future. And it was a turning point, because it was just like, go away, go away, go away. And then it was like, wait a minute. Oh no, that was 6 interviews before. Cause I just put 2 people together. Oh no, that was, it was way more than that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 interviews ago.
Wow.
That's just this week. I was like, wait a minute. No, it wasn't her. It was Mandy Lay. Okay. So, but she said the very, was somebody. Okay. So now I'm probably misquoting it, right?
Okay.
That's okay. But somebody said, how do you take the very pain from your past and use it to create in the future? right? Instead of avoiding it, how do you use, and that's what you did in essence, right? To bring the heartbeat back of a company, right? To bring a real live heartbeat into a relationship, right? Into families again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so needed. It's so
Yeah,
needed because so many people are doing life without there really being a connection.
that's right. And that's what gets missed. And in order to do that, we must face it
Yeah.
and figure out what the it is. We got to face it, we have to name it, and then ideally remove its power because that thing keeps us bound.
Yeah.
Whatever that ism is, that it. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. And I would just I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. I want to let all of our viewers know that underneath this YouTube video, you will see the word more. And if you click on that more button, you will find out ways that you too can get a hold of Dr. Dawn Marie Kier. Um, we have about 5 more minutes, Dr. Dawn. I would just ask that you would extend a blessing to those who have been positioned in leadership through very hard work. I mean, they've just worked as hard as they possibly
Mm.
can, and they're exhausted. But because
Mm.
of their leadership skills that they've learned, although in the midst of their exhaustion, they can't stop because they don't know anything else. So I would just like you to speak a blessing of hope and encouragement over them.
Hmm. Gosh, as you say that, literally, I could feel like, we could call it the heart drop, but I could feel that heart drop because it's a very real space of how do I slow down and catch up with my heart?
Mm, mm,
How do I slow down and catch up with the heart? And so, what I would say to those leaders who are feeling like they're burnt out, who are
mm-hmm,
feeling exhausted, who are feeling unheard, feeling as though if they stop, then, oh, what's going to happen here organizationally? And we can just move that right into the family because a lot of times there are people who feel unheard, unseen. It's making me think about see light ministries, being able to see light in the other person. And what I would say is let's use this moment right here. Let's use this moment to stop and to pause and to slow down your thoughts. And you just saw me close my eyes. And I invite you to do the same.
mm-hmm.
And let's just take a breath. The breath was the very first thing that God did. He formed and then He breathed into us. So I invite you to breathe. And as you're breathing in, imagine that you're taking in the very best that the Lord has for you for this moment. Don't think about the next, but just think about this moment. And as you are breathing out, offer all that you're holding on the inside to Him. Let's breathe in again. Breathe in Him, His strength, His love, His power, His wisdom. And as you're breathing out, offer to Him all that is heavy, all that's burdening your heart. I invite you to open your eyes and to think about what's present now. As you've just taken a moment to slow down,
Amen.
to be present with your heart, to be present with Him, and allow the greater one who's on the inside of you to give you the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, and the discernment for the next step. just the next step, because he always gives us just enough light for the step that we're on.
That's really good. Thank you so much. I heard the song. You are my dun dun na 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 dun na 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 na. You are my all in all, Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy. You know what song that is? Because that's a song that just came to me. I haven't heard that song for years. It's an old
Wow.
one. It's an old one too. Just it, and truly, if we all just take a moment of rest, you hear people say a moment of silence. No, shut the brain down. Take a moment of rest. Right? Even I've learned
Yeah.
even power naps. It only takes about 10 minutes to take a power nap.
That's right. Oh,
It
so good.
just shut down for just a minute. So Dr. Dawn Marie, I just thank you for your time. I thank you. So give us some examples of. Can you tell us some companies
Yes.
you've worked for?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So they're all there on the website. I'm going to try and remember them.
Okay.
Let's see. The Honey Baked Ham Company, Disney, Chick-fil-A, Goodwill, Tropical Smoothie, Tin Drums, Smash Park. I am missing so. They're now Chase Bank. Back then they were Great Western, and then they went through a change there. UPS, gosh, there's been so many over the
Piedmont.
Piedmont. My friend said Piedmont. They're so great.
Yeah. Georgia Connection Academy.
Yes.
Littler.
Yes, Littler Menderson.
Okay. Novo Logic.
Yes. You must have the list there.
I do. I'm looking at it now. Tropical Cafe. DYNE. I can't read.
Dine.
Yeah. Dine. That's amazing. That's amazing. And and I'm just thinking the companies that they're. I don't know why there's this person feels the need to be like on set today.
He wants to be present.
So we're just gonna humor our viewers. This is Sprinkles. He's wanting to be part of the party.
Oh, he's adorable. Hi, Sprinkles. You're cute.
He heard you because his head turned. Did you see that?
He did. Hi,
yeah. So when you decide to get a dog, this is a miniature wiener dog, and it's actually Frinkles with an F. Frinkles,
Oh, Frinkles, not with an S. Frinkles. Yeah. Hi, Frinkles. Hi. I love how you pay attention. Oh, you're a good listener.
He is. He straight up hears you.
That is fantastic.
He's like, I just want your attention, because he knows he's supposed to be in his kennel when he comes to work with me. But, anyways, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Dawn Marie Kier. What a blessing, and I'm looking forward to just watch where he's going to position you, where he's going to continue to position you, so that the heartbeat of companies and corporations would be a healthy one.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you so much for today. I enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, so good. And so to all of our viewers, I want to thank you for coming to this episode of Sagionic 1027. And until our next broadcast and our next guest, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee always. Blessings. Bye.